Okay, I want to welcome you guys back. Yesterday, I did an interview with Jim and Joanne, or Jim and Josephine from California, and Adrian Lloyd about the Mattis file on the Hard News Network. They haven't yet released the clipped stream, so we'll have to see when that happens. But when it does, I'll post a link. I might mirror the stream, or I'll put it on my Twitter or something, or on Gab, or the other social media that I use. So pretty much the past few months, I've been dealing a lot with the issue of Russian election hacking, as it's been called, of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and how it's just not a real story. It's actually pretty much an urban legend that's been used by the media in order to actually, if we were being honest about it, it's being used by the media, corporate media, and the corporate Democratic Party in order to cut the legs behind Sanders' actual progressive support. Because if they can make the claim that he was infiltrated by Russia, his supporters were also basically duped or something, then I think it's their basic goal to... Yeah, I found an MP3 player. It's their goal to basically show, well, he accomplished some things, but in reality he was a stooge, just like they claim Donald Trump was. In many cases, they will show Bernie Sanders to be complicit in this alleged hacking, even though it occurred after his withdrawal from the primaries, and also in groups that are, they're fans of his, but they're not affiliated with him. And he just takes it like the bitch that he is. Bernie Sanders, I stick up for his supporters because, I think that, an accurate journalistic landscape is an important thing. I can't say the same thing for him. He doesn't give a shit. He will never, ever, ever stand up to these bitches at CNN or at MSNBC or NPR or at Politico that basically are using him and his bitch supporters at the top. I'm not talking about his grassroots supporters. I think his grassroots supporters are fine. But his, people like Jeff Weaver and, some of his more senior followers, Nina Turner and everybody, those people aren't actually, they're not doing anything to help his cause. They're basically giving, when they get punched with a right hook to the face, they basically try to play footsie under the table. That's the approach of Bernie Sanders and his coterie of leadership. And the fans, his fans, I'll tell you what, they are also derelict in their duty. If you have somebody who's been your candidate and you're trying to claim, he's the best candidate possible, then he repeatedly stabs you in the back, doesn't stand up for you, doesn't even do the minimum in order to investigate what the hell is happening, and basically caves at every step of the journey, then you need somebody else. There's no excuse for that. Let's see if there's anybody here. Jim So. Yeah, just my stupid opinion. I never defended Bernie Sanders. I've always said that Bernie Sanders is literally, he is the shit that's stuck to your shoes. Actually, I said that about somebody else. But his supporters, I'm not attacking his supporters, but I am attacking him. And that's where the distinction is, okay? He basically got screwed. He had the opportunity of a lifetime to upset the political landscape of the United States of America and change the way politics were conducted forever. All he had to do was, when he got cheated out of the primary, was to say, I'm not going to make an endorsement for anybody. I'm just going to say, I lost, and people can vote however they please. If they want to vote for Jill Stein, that's fine. If they want to vote for, the big boy mascot, that's also okay. That there's nothing wrong with that. Now, why am I saying that he's a complete piece of garbage. He's worse than garbage. When you ever go and take out the garbage and, you lift the bag out of the garbage can and there's like this pool of water at the bottom. Let's say rain had fallen the night before, or the bag leaked or something, and it's just a bunch of like nasty garbage water that smells like vinegar and Hot Pockets at the same time. That's Bernie Sanders. There's a person who ran as the guy who opposes free trade, and what does he do? He puts out this video a couple of days ago after the G7.
Russia should be in this meeting. Why are we having a meeting without Russia?
I find it very strange that President Trump has such a hard time getting along with the leaders of the world's major democracies, but feels very comfortable with despots and authoritarian leaders. Over the weekend, President Trump created a crisis with our allies in the G7, a group of the 7 largest economies in the world. He suggested that Russia be allowed back into the group after Russia had been ejected because of its invasion of Crimea.
Russia should be in the meeting.
And then he withdrew at the last minute from a joint statement because he got his feelings hurt by something the Canadian Prime Minister said.
Canadians were polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around.
As he prepared for a summit with North Korea, he even called Kim Jong-un, one of the most vicious dictators in the world, an honorable man. This is part
Thanks, Jimso. Anyway, he says, while very light on substance, Trump and Kim Jong-un's meeting is a positive step in de-escalating tensions and addressing the threat of North Korea's nuclear weapons. Congress has a key role to play in making sure this is a meaningful process, not just a series of photo ops. So, by the way, if he's punting the ball to Congress, he's saying it's Congress's responsibility. Congress hasn't done shit about North Korea ever. If we let Congress decide our foreign affairs, nothing would ever get done. It would all be about how do we give more money to defense contractors. And actually, Bernie Sanders has more to answer about that than the majority of anybody watching this stream or myself. Okay, let's see here on the stream. Okay, no audio. Yeah, I still saw it. Okay. Pinochet, I think when the shit hits the fan in the Iran scandal and the hacking debacle, we'll see why he won't stand up to the Dems. Look, Bernie Sanders has always been a spineless twat. Okay? I guess technically, as far as a piece of anatomy, the twat doesn't have a spine anyway. But you get the point. You have somebody who spent his entire primary saying we're going to fight the corporate, we're going to break up the big banks, we're going to fight corporate lobbyists and blah, blah, blah and everything. Who does he endorse? The queen of the corporate lobbyists and the bankers and everything. Basically Goldman Sachs, customer of the year. Hillary Rodham Clinton, you can see it there. You see that this is their face. It's their face since then. It's the face of the Bernie, the Bernie people. I do respect the people who fought hard, The people who went to the convention and took the abuse, and that's the people I do respect. I don't respect this piece of shit. Let's watch the rest of the video.
Part of a pattern with Trump. Last year, we saw Trump sending congratulations to Turkish President Erdogan for his victory in a referendum that vastly expanded his power and further weakened Turkey's democracy. Similarly, in his visit to Asia in early November, Trump had nothing but the most effusive praise for Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Okay, I would agree that we need to probably cut off relations with Erdogan. What's one of the problems with that? Well, it's a little thing called NATO. You see, everybody's complaining that Trump isn't close enough with NATO. Why don't these senators, send a letter to NATO, say, why don't you kick Turkey out of NATO? Because as of right now, they're still a NATO member.
Who recently moved to consolidate his own power and head off any possibility of real political reform. On the same trip, Trump met with President Duterte of the Philippines, who has been waging a violent crackdown under the guise of a war on drugs that, according to Human Rights Watch, has led to the death of over 12,000 people. Trump has said he is doing an amazing job and boasted of their great relationship. Why is Donald Trump so supportive of the leaders of Saudi Arabia, a hereditary monarchy where women are treated as third-class citizens and which has promoted an extreme version of Islam throughout the world? After dozens of members of the Saudi royal family were arrested in the Saudi crown prince's ongoing effort to consolidate power, Trump tweeted,
Okay, so what he's taking here is he's actually contradicting himself because, let's not put our entire trust in the Saudi crown prince. I think he's, his whole intention isn't to reform Saudi Arabia in order to make it more modern for the purposes of freedom. It's in order to obviously promote his own power. But he's also been one of the people who's curtailed the previous the previous leadership under Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, I think his name was. Those are the people who were the Saudis who were funding Al-Qaeda and ISIS and everything. Those are the people he purged. So, either you support purging those people and reforming Saudi Arabia of at least that element, even though I have very little confidence that Saudi Arabia can be reformed as a society. I think the best people in Saudi Arabia are the ones who end up leaving and never go back, and they don't want to go back. It's a country that if I was from there, I would probably, you might. It's basically the New Jersey of the world. It's just a disgrace.
And then there's Trump's ongoing affinity for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has severely repressed democracy in his own country, invaded his neighbors, and spent the last number of years trying to destabilize democracies, including our own and those of our allies. These are the kind of people Trump feels comfortable with. Our job is to bring countries together to defend democracy, not attack our allies and support authoritarianism. Does the president understand? Too many Americans have fought and died in support of democratic values. We will not allow you to undermine them.
Yeah, fuck that bitch. His whole thing with Putin undermining our democracy. You being, a fucking cream puff is what undermined the democracy. Not standing up, not growing a dick. You piece of shit, Bernie Sanders. I honestly, I've had enough of him. He said, last year, he says, Bernie Sanders tells Trump to keep his promise on NAFTA. President Trump is finding an unlikely, so this is from December 13th, 2017. President Trump is finding an unlikely ally in his effort to overhaul the North American Free Trade Agreement. The political left, civil society groups, union leaders, and left-wing politicians have opposed almost everything Trump has done, but they're urging him to stand firm in his attempt to overhaul NAFTA and face down opposition from business groups who complain that U.S. companies will be hurt by proposed changes. Mexico and Canada have called U.S. demands unworkable, including on regional content requirements for cars and investor-state dispute systems. Senator Bernie Sanders, an outspoken critic of trade deals in his campaign for president last year, called on Trump to deliver. When Donald Trump campaigned for president, he promised that he was going to stop corporations from shifting American jobs to Mexico. Sanders said when, it's funny that they pretend that they're a pro-Mexican party, the Democrats, and then, they blame the loss of American jobs on Mexico. And then when the president gets elected, who's willing to, say, well, Mexico, stop taking our jobs, they basically treat him like, he's Darth Maul from Phantom Menace. Many pro-trade Republicans oppose the contentious U.S. proposals, which the administration says will lure manufacturing back to America. Trump may need votes from the left if he hopes to pass a revised NAFTA. That means courting organizations such as advocacy group Public Citizen, which opposes much of Trump's agenda, including his views on climate change and bank regulations. However, the nonprofit is tentatively backing several U.S. positions at the negotiating table, including a push to eliminate tribunals that arbitrate disputes between governments and companies. I am more optimistic that there could be a trade agreement we would support and fight for than I have been in decades, said Lori Wallach, Global Trade Watch Director of the nonprofit group. Public Citizen wants additional changes, including stronger environmental and labor standards, she said. Negotiators are meeting this week in Washington with the next round scheduled for Montreal in January. Trump has said he'll withdraw from NAFTA if Canada and Mexico don't agree to American demands. So this was Bernie, just, what is it now, 7 months ago? And indeed, I wrote this article. This is on Steemit, by the way. Go vote it up. Don't be a jackass like Bernie Sanders. Actually support the people that support you. And Bernie Sanders, he ran. I even mentioned it here. These were the positions that Bernie Bros supported, that Hillary Clinton didn't. And one of them is this one. Sanders supporters are often disaffected white male racists that agitate for a trade war. That's what the Democrats claim. That's not what I claim. I think I think people who vote for Bernie Sanders have a right to vote for him. Anybody can vote for anyone. But it's not just Bernie Sanders who has consistently said that in the past. Opposition to NAFTA, the TPP, and other free trade agreements are the positions not just of Bernie Bros, but also the AFL-CIO, America's largest federation of trade unions. By the way, it always supports the Democratic Party. Both Bill and Hillary Clinton supported signing NAFTA in 1994. In 2014, the AFL-CIO declared on NAFTA's 20th anniversary that, unfortunately, the enduring result of NAFTA has been just the opposite of prosperity: stagnant wages, increasing inequality, and weakened social protections in all three countries. The union's president, Richard Trumka, also called the TPP a new low. And I have both of these statements right here. Okay? TPP is a new low. Okay? So they can take their whole virtue signaling and shove it up their ass. They're not actual advocates for anybody. They're advocates for their own success, these groups. Whether it's the AFL-CIO or the Teachers Federation. Okay, so I'm about to end this stream in like 2 minutes. I'll just read the rest of these. Funny that Bernie denounced Kim Jong-un, considering it was all gaga over Fidel Castro for decades. Yes, just my stupid opinions uses a moon emoji, a crescent moon emoji, to symbolize Bernie's spine. Pinochet says hoodless clit. Well, yeah, that would be better than the spineless twat. That would be a little more consistent. Is this the Bernie 2020 kickoff video? It might as well be. This is we're going to get more of this. This is pretty much what you have to expect. It's Bernie being a complete idiot, basically stabbing. He stabs his own supporters in the back. Who's watching the Soccer World Cup this year? I don't know where to watch it because I don't have a TV at home. Didn't Bin Talal get arrested, then had to pay 80% of his wealth to get out of jail? I think one of their people just got like hung, he got executed. He was like hung upside down and they did something to him. Arjun says if they start the Tommy chants in those stadiums, I'll just tune in. Yeah, they should. They should. It would be amazing. Arjun says FIFA 2018 is in Russia. Tommy chants are unlikely. So in one breath, the Democrats say we can't be insular. Then they then say don't talk to those people. Make up my mind, or it should be make up your mind. Arjun, you don't think there's a ton of Tommy supporters in or traveling to Russia, or the Russians won't allow it? You know what? That type of thing, I think Russia would definitely allow it, and I'll explain why. Because it would be an embarrassment to Theresa May, and they don't like her. You know, she's consistently blamed them for some of that interference and whatever. So anyway, I don't have a lot of time for right now. There is an 11 o'clock stream tonight about Venezuela. Carlos Cordova is going to join. Might be another person joining. Tomorrow also a stream on West Bengal sometime in the morning with somebody here, Arjun. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, so I guess everybody, you can put your pictures out on the porch tonight, and get yourself a nice a nice pitcher of garbage water in the morning when it collects, because Bernie's just spreading it all over. He's distributing the garbage water. Take it easy.